Welcome back to the Catholic Church, Builder of Civilization. I'm Thomas Woods. Today we're sort of summing things up and then looking forward. We're looking at things the Church has done in the past and then thinking about what are we going to do in the future? What are we going to do to redeem Western civilization? Build it back up again to where it belongs. Now, I think if you were to take a quick glance, for example, at the world of art today, it's probably not fair to say all of modern art is just a complete disaster. I don't think anyone would really say that. However, I think we can say that there seems to be a relationship between a civilization's view as to whether there really is a transcendent, there's something that is beyond our experience, and a civilization that doesn't believe that believes in materialism. Materialism in this sense doesn't mean greed, it means believing that matter is all there is. If something isn't physical, then it doesn't exist. That's what materialism teaches. And it seems to me fairly obvious that the type of art you would see in those different types of civilizations would differ from each other. And this is a point that Jude Doherty made. He's the Dean Emeritus of the School of Philosophy at the Catholic University of America. And he's made this point. He asked the question, could a great Gothic cathedral, or indeed Gothic architecture in general, could that have been built in a materialistic culture? And likewise, could some of the hideous things that we see around us all the time, what Doherty calls Lego set architecture, we're surrounded by everywhere, would that have been built in an age and a culture that believed in the transcendent? When you, in effect, when you believe in materialism, what you're saying is that there is no meaning to life. If all there is matter, if matter is just dead, it has no purposes, then there is no meaning to anything if there's no transcendent. And if you really believe that life has no meaning, it would be a miracle if that belief weren't in fact reflected in your art. And we see that. Of course, we see that everywhere. Now, I suppose it's shooting fish in a barrel to criticize some of the excesses of modern art, so I'm not going to do that. There's a little bit of that in my book, and you can find that all over the place. But I do remember walking into my classroom back in the years when I was a professor in New York, and I had a newspaper article, and I said to them, this is a Western Civ course, I said, ladies and gentlemen, I want to update you on the state of Western civilization. And I read to them this news item. And it was a news item about the Turner Prize exhibition in England. It was a prestigious art prize. And one of the exhibits was called The Lights Going On and Off. And in this exhibit, the artist, so-called, flicked on and off the lights of the facility. And this produced an interesting effect, apparently, and that was his work of art. I know what you're all thinking. I can flick lights on and off too. I know. I'm thinking the same thing. Also in recent years, at major prize competitions, more than once, the janitorial staff has mistakenly thrown these art exhibits in the garbage, assuming that they were trash. What does that say to you about the state of the civilization? Now, if we Catholics don't defend ourselves, as I said at the beginning, nobody's going to do it for us. We've got a glorious civilization behind us. We've produced some extraordinary art that is admired by people all over the world. Now, it's true, though, that we're not Catholics because we produced great art. We're not Catholics because the Church helped to foster the university, or because the Church encouraged the sciences. These are all wonderful things. That's not why we're Catholic. But there are a couple of benefits that come from knowing this information. And the first one is that a lot of people do believe a lot of negative things about the Church, don't they? A lot of people believe these negative things. So if we can show them that they're mistaken, that in fact a lot of these misconceptions are exactly that. They're just misconceptions without historical foundation, we will have struck down an obstacle to their conversion. So it is important to know this knowledge, even if it's not the reason that we're Catholics. It will help us when we interact with people who have deeply embedded prejudices. But remember, nobody's going to defend ourselves if we don't defend us. We have to defend ourselves. We have to be prepared to tell people these things when they come up and say the Church has been nothing but a blight. We have to have an answer for that, because they're not going to have the answer. We need to give them that answer. But secondly, these things help to confirm our own faith. And what I mean by that is that we should expect Christ's church to bear such wonderful temporal fruits. Because if the church really is what she claims to be, she's the bride of Christ, she's a divine institution, then naturally we would expect her to bear great supernatural fruits in the form of grace and the sacraments. But we should also expect her to bear great temporal fruits. And when we in fact confirm that, and we see that, it helps to confirm our faith, doesn't it? It helps to confirm our faith. Now, looking at the state of Western civilization, our past couple of popes have been frankly saddened and have noted the attempt by people to pretend that the Catholic inheritance is dispensable or perhaps doesn't even exist. You cannot think of constructing a common European house neglecting the very identity of the peoples of our continent. That's what Pope Benedict XVI said recently. He's very interested in this subject of how do we redeem Europe. Pope John Paul II, on one of the 9 or so trips to Poland that he took during his pontificate, said this to the crowd: "Giving in to desire, to sex, to consumption, that is the Europeanism that some supporters of our entry into Europe think we should accept. But we mustn't become part of that Europe. We," he said, "were the ones who created Europe." And with much more effort than those who claim exclusive rights to Europeanism. What is their criterion, the Pope said? Freedom. But which freedom? The freedom to take the life of an unborn child? Brothers and sisters, he concluded, I protest against this concept of Europe held by the West. And this message must be shouted loudly from this land of martyrs. Europe is waiting for redemption. The world needs a redeemed Europe. Now, I myself am a convert to the Catholic faith. And when I initially converted, I converted in large part because of theological and scriptural reasons and a lot of study. And I knew I had done the right thing. I knew I had acquired the pearl of great price. Well, this project has been, in effect, like a second type of conversion for me. I've renewed all the enthusiasm that I had for the church when I first entered. Because I knew a lot of this stuff about the history before I wrote How the Catholic Church Built Western Civilization, but I learned a lot more as I did it. And I said to myself, this is it. This is the institution that Christ established. Look at it. Look at all the wonderful fruits. Now, how are we going to get this out there? Well, I would say a key method is educating ourselves, and that includes educating the next generation. So it seems to me that either homeschooling or Catholic schooling that includes sound historical study is absolutely indispensable. Because let's be honest, a lot of people in the world are not particularly knowledgeable about the stuff we've covered here. So it only takes 2 or 3 really well thought out sentences to knock over their whole case. So if we got our kids ready so that when they go out there and they find themselves fighting against anti-Catholic propaganda, if they're ready to meet it on its own terms, people are going to be stunned. They're not going to know what to say because nobody's got a good historical foundation. But disproportionately, I believe that students who are being homeschooled, even though they're a minority, they will still disproportionately, out of proportion to their numbers, be numbered among the educated people of our world to come. And they will be ready for the usual claims made against the church. That's essential. We're all set to get started homeschooling our kids. I can't wait to do it. But in the case of my own conversion, I remember, if I may be pardoned this personal conclusion, I remember I was on the verge of converting. And, people wanted to send me books showing me why Protestantism was false and Catholicism was true. And I appreciated that, and that was good. I did want to know those things. I did want to be able to answer the arguments of Luther. But ultimately what happened to me, and the whole story would take a little bit longer, but what happened to me was I reached a point at which I came to the conclusion that I wanted to be a Catholic. I pretty much knew I wanted to be a Catholic. All of a sudden, this fascinating and extraordinary and gigantic institution was just staring me in the face. 2,000 years of tradition staring me in the face. And even then, I knew some of her achievements in Western civilization as well. And frankly, I know I shouldn't put it quite this way, but I want to be honest, I just suddenly felt stupid. I just thought that all this time, I've had this institution, and all its glorious benefits, and all the wonderful things she's done, and all her beauty staring me in the face, and I haven't immediately rushed to embrace her. Frankly, I just felt stupid. I didn't really need books showing me why I had been wrong before. I knew there'd be time enough to study all the ins and outs. I just wanted to learn the faith. Just teach me the faith. Show me what the Church teaches. That's what I want. I read Father Hardon's Great Catechism. I just absorbed it, and I said, yes, this is what I've been thirsting for. And I bring this up because I have a friend who contacted me not long ago, and he's having second thoughts. He's a Protestant, and he's thinking maybe he wants to become a Catholic. And my first instinct was, let me send him all these books showing him why he's wrong to be a Protestant. And I realized, you know what, he's going through just what I went through at that time. He just feels like kind of a doofus, that all this time he's neglected the pearl of great price that's staring him right in the face. This great institution, the most beautiful institution in the world. So instead, I just sent him books that explain the faith. Here is what it is. That is what converts people. And so when I finally converted, I said to myself, you know, no longer do I have to feel alienated from this extraordinary institution that has built the very civilization in which I live. I'm part of her now. And all those saints who lived from that 1,000-year period that Lutherans despised as having been unbiblical, they became my friends. I could be friends with St. Anselm, whom we talked about in this series. I could be friends with St. Thomas Aquinas. I wasn't alienated and separated from them. I was united to them in the bond of the communion of saints. This, in effect, was what helped bring about my conversion, and why this historical project for me has, in effect, brought back so many wonderful memories, that all these things are what brought me in, ultimately, in the beginning. Now, one of my favorite quotations from the saints comes from St. Thomas More, who said that nobody on his deathbed ever regretted having been a Catholic. Now, isn't that true? Speaking to an audience of Catholics and non-Catholics, I can assure you that that is true. Now, over these 13 weeks, including today, it's been a real pleasure, if I may quote some other people in television, to come into your living rooms, and I'm deeply honored that you've welcomed me. I hope that some of the material that we've covered has been helpful to you, has made it easier for you to defend the Catholic faith, and has, in your case, as in mine, helped you to fall in love with her all the more. And so I wish you all the blessings of God, and I say to you, thank you very much for joining me, and God bless you, and perhaps we'll meet again sometime in the future. Thanks so much for being with me for the Catholic Church, Builder of Civilization. I'm Thomas Woods.